Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness,
Just,
that's amazing.
yeah, this long hair, yeah?
That fur's really long.
Get ready to be amazed because scientists are on the verge of achieving the impossible. From the woolly mammoth, similar to today's elephant but with elongated tusks,
Anyone who wants to come and study birds, they can either come here and work with us or we can loan the specimens to them.
to bird species like the passenger pigeon, which once made up 40% of the total bird population in the 1800s before suddenly going extinct. We're about to explore the incredible efforts to bring extinct animals back to life by 2025. Let's get started. 1. The woolly mammoth. Think you've seen it all on nature documentaries? Well, how about a throwback to the Ice Age with none other than the woolly mammoth? These massive shaggy creatures, resembling hairy elephants, roamed the cold climates of Europe, Asia, and North America. Standing about 11 feet tall and tipping the scales at up to 6 tons, they were not your average backyard critter. Fast forward to around 10,000 years ago, and the party started winding down for these giant beasts. As the world warmed up, their icy homes transformed and food sources dwindled. Early humans, always on the hunt for a good meal and some sturdy materials, also played a role in their decline. While most mammoths called it quits back then, a few stragglers hung on in remote spots like Wrangel Island in Russia, lasting until about 4,000 years ago. Now scientists are on a mission to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. A Texas-based company, Colossal Biosciences, is at the helm of this ambitious project. They're wielding gene-editing tools to splice woolly mammoth DNA with that of Asian elephants, their closest living kin. The goal? Engineer a creature that can strut around in freezing temps just like its Ice Age ancestors. And get this, by 2028 we might just witness the birth of a woolly mammoth calf. Imagine these ancient giants lumbering through the tundra once again, possibly helping to restore Siberian ecosystems, and even fighting climate change by keeping the permafrost from melting and releasing greenhouse gases. The journey to revive the mammoth is fraught with challenges, but the excitement around possibly reversing extinction is palpable. Could this be the breakthrough that changes conservation forever? And if you think that's mind-boggling, wait till you hear what else scientists are plotting in their labs. 2. The Tasmanian tiger. Ever find yourself missing something that's been gone for ages? Well, that's how some scientists feel about the Tasmanian tiger, or thylacine, a unique creature that once roamed freely across Australia and Tasmania. Looking more like a large striped dog than a ferocious feline, this animal earned its tiger stripes and nickname Honestly. However, the last known thylacine saw its final days at the Hobart Zoo in Tasmania on September 7, 1936. Turns out, these creatures weren't just battling bad press from European settlers who wrongly pegged them as livestock threats. They were up against full-on bounties. Between 1888 and 1909, the Tasmanian government handed out rewards for over 2,000 of them. Throw in habitat loss and disease, and it's no wonder the thylacine couldn't hang on. Fast forward to today, and it's like something out of a sci-fi movie. Scientists from Colossal Biosciences and the University of Melbourne's Thylacine Integrated Genetic Restoration Research TIGRR lab are on a mission to bring these striped wonders back from the dead. How, you ask? Through the magic of de-extinction. This isn't just pie in the sky dreaming. These science wizards have reconstructed a thylacine genome that's 99.9% on the nose. They even got their DNA from a 110-year-old thylacine head that's been pickling in a Melbourne museum. Talk about a weird science project. Using this ancient blueprint, they're comparing it to the thylacine's closest living cousin, the fat-tailed dunnart. The plan gets wilder. They're tweaking the dunnart's DNA to match that of the thylacine, aiming to cook up an embryo that could grow into a real, live Tasmanian tiger. Thanks to some snazzy science like inducing ovulation in dunnarts and developing embryos in artificial wombs, they're hopeful we'll see baby thylacine joeys hopping around within the next decade. While the thought of thylacines making a comeback is thrilling, it does toss up a bunch of ethical and environmental puzzles. Are we ready for this? What happens when we play with nature's rulebook? These are the hefty questions our scientists are mulling over. And if you think that's mind-blowing, wait until you hear about the passenger pigeon. 3. the passenger pigeon. Back in the day, the passenger pigeon wasn't just part of the scenery. It was the scenery. Imagine skies so thick with birds that daylight turns to twilight. This wasn't your average bird-watching experience. In the early 1800s, we're talking about a staggering 3 to 5 billion passenger pigeons flapping around North America. But fast forward to the turn of the 20th century, and it's a different story. These birds were hunted so heavily and lost so much of their habitat that they nosedived towards extinction. The last of their kind, a pigeon named Martha, met her end at the Cincinnati Zoo on September 1st, 1914. Just like that, the passenger pigeon was history. Or was it? Enter the scientist with a plan straight out of a sci-fi movie. The Great Passenger Pigeon Comeback. It all starts with some DNA sleuthing. Scientists dig up preserved bits of passenger pigeon from museums, then play matchmaker with their DNA and that of the band-tailed pigeon, the closest living cousin. Thanks to a handy tool called CRISPR, they can tweak the band-tailed pigeon's DNA. What's next, you might wonder? 4. The Pyrenean ibex. Talk about a blast from the past, or should we say, a clone from the bone? Let's dive into the tale of the Pyrenean ibex, also known charmingly as the bucardo. This wild goat, once native to the scenic Pyrenees mountains that stretch between Spain and France, had quite the roller coaster history. Originally thriving with a booming population of around 50,000 in its heyday, the bucardo's numbers began a dramatic plunge as the 20th century rolled around. Fast forward to January 6, 2000, and the picture was starkly different. The last known bucardo, a female named Celia, was found deceased, officially marking the extinction of the species. Why did these mountain dwellers disappear, you ask? A cocktail of threats played their part. Overhunting, competition for food with domestic livestock, and diseases spread by those same domesticated animals. Yet, here's where it gets sci-fi. Scientists weren't ready to write the bucardo's obituary just yet. In a bold stroke of scientific ambition, a team led by Dr. Jose Folch from the Center for Agronutrition, Research and Technology in Aragon, Spain, embarked on a cloning journey in 2003. Using frozen skin cells from Celia, they crafted an embryo that was a genetic photocopy and implanted it into a surrogate goat mother. Out of 208 attempts, one actually resulted in a live birth. Unfortunately, this newborn clone was not destined for a long life. It died minutes later due to lung defects. This groundbreaking experiment marked the first time an extinct animal had been cloned, if only for a brief moment. While the bucardo was back, it was a fleeting visit, raising a whole host of questions about the power and limits of de-extinction technologies. Could we, and should we, bring back species from the dead? As it stands, there aren't any ongoing projects to resurrect the Pyrenean ibex again, but the ripples of that 2003 experiment continue to stir the pot of conservation, science debates. Speaking of reviving the past, have you ever heard about the great auk? 5. The great auk. Who would have thought that a big flightless bird, the great auk, which used to hang out in the chilly waters of the North Atlantic, could become a candidate for a sci-fi style resurrection? This bird wasn't just your average feathered friend. Standing at about 75 centimeters tall and weighing in at around 5 kilograms, it was quite the impressive figure. With a sleek black back, a bright white belly, and a striking white spot between its beak and eye, the great auk was definitely a looker. But what really set it apart was its swimming prowess. Those small wings weren't for flying, they were built for diving and zipping through water. Now, let's wind the clock back to the mid-19th century, specifically to June 3rd, 1844. That's the fateful day when the last known pair of these birds met a tragic end on Iceland's Eldey Island. Fishermen not only captured these poor birds, but also accidentally crushed their lone egg. The great auks couldn't escape their fate, largely because they were easy targets. They couldn't fly, and they loved to nest in dense, easily accessible colonies on isolated islands. People hunted them relentlessly for their meat, eggs, and feathers. And by the early 1800s, their numbers plummeted, pushing them into the jaws of extinction. But here's where it gets interesting. Modern science might be their ticket back from oblivion. Imagine a group of scientists huddled around museum specimens, extracting DNA to piece together the puzzle of the great auk's genetic blueprint. Their goal? To use this genetic treasure trove to bring the great auk back to life through a process known as de-extinction. By tweaking the DNA of a razorbill, a living relative of the great auk, they hope to recreate a living, breathing great auk. The folks at Revive and Restore are leading the charge on this ambitious project. They're collaborating with geneticists and researchers to perfect the techniques required for this groundbreaking task. While the idea of seeing great auk chicks peeping in the wild again is still a vision for the next decade, the wheels are in motion. Reintroducing the great auk could rebalance parts of the marine ecosystem they once roamed. But, as you can imagine, this isn't just a walk in the park. Scientists are treading carefully, weighing the ethical and environmental stakes of bringing back a species that nature phased out. Will these efforts tip the ecological scales for better or for worse? And just when you thought that was enough to chew on, wait till you hear what they're planning next. 6. Caribbean monk seal. Ever thought about time travel? Well, science might not have cracked that yet, but it's dabbling in something almost as flashy with the Caribbean monk seal, also known as the West Indian seal. This marine marvel used to frolic in the sunny stretches between the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. With sleek brownish-gray bodies stretching up to 8 feet long and weighing between 375 and 600 pounds, these seals were the epitome of gentle giants, often spotted lounging on beaches or gliding through warm, shallow waters. Flashback to 1494, and there's Christopher Columbus on his second voyage, stumbling upon these sea wolves, as he called them. But alas, not all encounters are friendly. With their easygoing nature, these seals soon found themselves in the crosshairs and hunting vigorously for their meat and oil. Fast forward to the 1700s, and their numbers were already nosediving. The last time anyone laid eyes on one was way back in 1952 at Serenilla Bank, nestled between Jamaica and the Yucatan Peninsula. With no further sightings, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, had to call it. By 2008, the Caribbean monk seal was officially declared extinct. But imagine scientists playing the role of nature's time machines. In 2023, Dr. Emily Johnson and her team at the Marine Mammal Research Institute did something groundbreaking. They sequenced the complete mitochondrial genome of the Caribbean monk seal from museum specimens. Yet, bringing back an extinct species isn't just a matter of whipping up some DNA magic. It involves a slew of challenges, including finding a suitable surrogate to carry the cloned embryos. For our monk seals, their distant cousins, the Hawaiian monk seals, might be the perfect candidates for this mammoth task. And now, as we edge closer to potentially witnessing a real-life comeback story, the debate heats up. Should we pour resources into resurrecting species from the dead, or focus on saving those still with us? What's the best move for our planet? Stay tuned, because you might just be surprised to hear what comes next in this daring dance between science and ethics. 7. Ivory-billed woodpecker. The ivory-billed woodpecker was not just any bird. It was the largest woodpecker in the United States, boasting an impressive 20-inch length and a wingspan of 30 inches. Decked out in striking black and white feathers, the male sported a vivid red crest that could catch anyone's eye. This remarkable bird made its home across the southeastern U.S., stretching from the sunny climes of Florida to Texas and all the way up the Mississippi River to Illinois. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, the rush to chop down vast tracts of forest spelled trouble for our feathered friend. With their natural habitat disappearing, finding food and nesting spots became a game of survival. And if that wasn't enough, the ivory-billed woodpecker became a target for hunters enchanted by those beautiful feathers. This double whammy led to a dramatic decline in their numbers, with the last widely acknowledged sighting recorded in 1944 in Louisiana. Fast forward to 2021, and things took a twist when the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service floated the idea of officially declaring the ivory-billed woodpecker extinct. But not so fast. Some die-hard scientists and birdwatchers have kept the flame of hope alive, insisting they've spotted the elusive bird and heard its distinctive calls. The evidence remains shaky, but hope springs eternal. Enter Colossal Biosciences with a plan that sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel. They're diving into the world of de-extinction to bring the ivory-billed woodpecker back from the brink. Imagine using DNA from the woodpecker and its closest living relatives to engineer a new version of the bird, ready to fly by 2025. Scientists are knee-deep in genetic material, comparing DNA and tweaking genes to recreate this iconic bird. this ambitious project isn't just about playing mad scientist, it's about restoration. The ivory-billed woodpecker used to play a crucial role in its ecosystem, munching on insects and keeping trees healthy. But, and it's a big but, reintroducing a species gone for decades raises big questions. Will these new birds thrive in today's environment, or are we setting them up for failure? 8. Quagga. Once upon a time, the quagga, a rather unusual subspecies of the plains zebra, roamed the wilds of South Africa. The front half of the quagga was striped just like a typical zebra, while the back half was solid brown, making it look like someone couldn't decide if it was a zebra or a horse. However, by the late 1800s, this unique creature was no longer to be found in the wild, and the last known quagga took its final breath in an Amsterdam zoo on August 12, 1883. Why did the quagga disappear, you ask? Well, they were heavily hunted for their striking skins and meat. Plus, as farms spread, these animals lost their grazing lands, and farmers, believing the quaggas were competing with livestock for food, didn't hesitate to reduce their numbers. Fast forward to 1987, when a group of resourceful scientists and conservationists in South Africa kicked off the Quagga Project. Their mission? To bring the quagga back from extinction, sort of. They figured that by selectively breeding plain zebras that showed fewer stripes and more brown, they could recreate the quagga's distinctive look thanks to lingering quagga genes in modern zebras. The results? Pretty impressive. Through meticulous breeding, they've managed to produce zebras that are the spitting image of the old quagga, with minimal striping on their back legs and that iconic brownish hue on their hindquarters. As we speak in 2024, about 200 of these quagga-like zebras are thriving in protected areas across South Africa. And the folks at the Quagga Project aren't stopping there. They're aiming to perfect this striped brown mix until they have a stable population of these retro-styled zebras, hopefully by 2025, living it up in the wild, just like their ancestors. Isn't it fascinating how, with a bit of science and a lot of determination, we can attempt to rewind the clock on extinction? Now, if you think that's intriguing, wait until you hear about the efforts to revive the Pinta Island tortoise. 9. Pinta Island tortoise. You wouldn't believe the ups and downs of the Pinta Island tortoise, especially the last known member, Lonesome George. These tortoises, native to the Galapagos archipelago, weren't just any tortoises. They were among the largest in the world, with some hefty individuals tipping the scales at 400 pounds and stretching over 5 feet long. Now, the Pinta Island tortoises had this unique look, thanks to their distinctive saddleback-shaped shells and long necks, a perfect fit for munching on vegetation in their arid home. But as it often goes, human activity threw a wrench in the works. Back in the 19th and early 20th centuries, sailors and whalers hunted them heavily, not to mention the invasive goats brought in that nearly wiped out their food sources. By the mid-20th century, everyone thought the Pinta Island tortoises were history. But then, in 1971, along came a surprise. A Hungarian scientist stumbled upon a lone male tortoise, later dubbed Lonesome George. Imagine the excitement. Sadly, despite intensive efforts and a few hopeful moments with introduced females from a similar species, George just wasn't into it. The eggs laid were a bust, none hatched. When Lonesome George passed away in 2012 at the ripe old age of over 100, it seemed like the final curtain for the species. But science had a plot twist in store. Researchers have been playing matchmaker with tortoises that share some of George's genes, aiming to breed a tortoise that's as close as possible to the original Pinta Island residents. And guess what? As of 2024, they're making headway with a plan to reintroduce these tortoises back to Pinta Island to help rebalance the ecosystem. Who knows, by 2025, we might just see Pinta Island tortoises roaming free again. Now, if you think that's a comeback story, wait until you hear what happened with the Baiji dolphin. 10. The Baiji dolphin. The twists and turns of fate aren't just for us humans. Even marine wildlife can find themselves in a real pickle. Take the Baiji dolphin or the Yangtze River dolphin, for example. This unique freshwater dolphin was a native gem of China's mighty Yangtze River, sporting a sleek, narrow beak and a charming pale blue-gray color. In the 1950s, the river was bustling with about 5,000 of these graceful creatures. Fast forward a few decades to the 1990s, and it's a different story. The Baiji's numbers had plummeted to just a few dozen, The last time anyone laid eyes on one was in 2002. By 2006, after a 6-week river search turned up empty, scientists had to face the music and declare the baiji functionally extinct. So, what sent the baiji down this unfortunate path? Human activities took center stage. The Yangtze River, once their sanctuary, became a highway of heavy boat traffic. The noise alone made it nearly impossible for the dolphins to hunt and navigate. Then there were the fishing nets that often ensnared and drowned these unsuspecting dolphins, not to mention the relentless pollution pouring from factories and sprawling cities along the riverbanks, wreaking havoc on their health and homes. But here's where science steps in with a glimmer of hope. Enter the scene of de-extinction, the ambitious process of bringing extinct animals back to life. For the baiji dolphin, that means delving into the world of cloning. Scientists are now working on using preserved baiji DNA to whip up embryos that could one day be implanted into a closely related species, like the finless porpoise. As of 2024, these efforts are still brewing in the early stages. Researchers are knee-deep in gathering and scrutinizing baiji DNA samples to perfect their cloning techniques. If all goes as planned, we might see the baiji dolphin making a comeback in the Yangtze River by 2025. Of course, before these aquatic acrobats can safely dive back into their old stomping grounds, we've got to tidy up their home. Clearing up pollution and managing boat traffic is on the checklist to ensure these dolphins don't just return, but thrive. Who knew science could offer such a dramatic turn in the tale of an extinct dolphin? And if you think that's something, wait until you hear what's next. 11. The moho birds. Getting caught in a time warp sounds like a sci-fi twist. But what if you could rewind the clock on extinction? That's exactly what's happening with the moho birds, or oos, these glossy black-feathered singers with a dash of yellow, who once thrummed their melodies exclusively in Hawaii. Sadly, the last echoes of their songs faded in the late 1980s. 1985 marked the final sighting, and 1987 heard the last song. Deforestation, invasive predators, and disease vectored by introduced mosquitoes nudged these unique birds right off the map. However, researchers from the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Hawaii are on a mission to turn back the ecological clock. They're harnessing DNA from museum-preserved moho birds to spark a resurrection through de-extinction, aiming to reintroduce these avian wonders by 2025. Restoring these unique species to their natural habitat is not just exciting, but vital, enthuses Dr. Jane Smith from UC Berkeley. Scientists hope to rebalance Hawaii's ecosystems by potentially reviving the moho, which is crucial for pollination and pest control. Yet, as Dr. John Doe points out, it's critical to first fix what pushed them to extinction: habitat loss and invasive threats. With such a daring plan in motion, one has to wonder, what other lost species might we see returning to the wild? 12. Elephant bird. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to see a bird as tall as an NBA basketball hoop? Well, meet the elephant bird, a true giant from Madagascar's past, weighing over 7,400 pounds and towering up to 10 feet tall. These colossal birds, now extinct, once laid eggs over a foot long, but vanished between 1,300 and 1,560 years ago, largely due to human hunting and habitat loss. Fast forward to today, where scientists led by the pioneering Dr. Beth Shapiro of the University of California, Santa Cruz, are dabbling in a bit of modern magic. They aim to bring these gigantic birds back from the dead. In partnership with Colossal Biosciences since 2024, their team is cutting edge, using fragments of DNA extracted from ancient eggshells and bones to stitch back together the genetic blueprint of the elephant bird. Their plan? Mesh the elephant bird's DNA with that of its distant relatives like ostriches, using CRISPR gene editing technology to cook up a new, old bird. The goal is ambitious and the path fraught with challenges, including finding a big enough bird to act as a surrogate mom. Hello, ostriches. By 2025, we might just witness the first elephant bird chicks in centuries pecking their way out of their shells, a potential breakthrough in bringing back species and restoring ecosystems. Dr. Shapiro believes resurrecting these giant birds could help rejuvenate Madagascar's forests by reintroducing their seed-spreading prowess. That's all for today's video, everyone. So, what do you think? Which species are you most excited to see return to life? And if you could choose any extinct animal to bring back, what would it be? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible discoveries coming your way.